Good morning, everybody. It's really great to see so many of you here. I was really heartened to see how many people actually made the trip in if your office isn't here. And I know that we have a number of folks on our WebEx and who have called in and are watching this or at least listening. So today's a very, very important day. And I'm just so thankful that all of you took this seriously enough to sign up for the day. I know your time is valuable. We're going to be doing some very important work today. But before getting into all of the work that we will be doing, I want to introduce to you President Javier Mieres, who you all know, who will be framing the work that we're going to be doing today. And after Javier is through with his framing, then I will be talking to you more about what we're going to be doing and the process for the collaboration that we will all be working on. So without further ado, here is President Mieres.
Thank you, Marie. Good morning to everybody. Welcome. This has exceeded our expectations in terms of turnout. I think it's a wonderful sign in terms of where we are going. Again, thank you, and joining me and joining Provost Finney, Vice Provost Cara Van Dam. What is Cara? Oh, she's at a conference. And the deans, Matt Prenius, and Eric Krause in the back. So we are launching a critically important initiative which will shape the future of academic governance at UMUC. When we started this process, I mentioned to Maria and to the executive committee that I think over the years we'll be able to look back, and this might be one of the most, if not the most important legacy items that I would like to leave behind in terms of addressing the next steps in our future when it comes to governance. I hope that we all approach the process with a spirit of openness, exploration, and discovery as we work together to establish the framework within which our curricula and our academic policies will be developed going forward. In preparation for this process, I have written a couple of books. If anything is clear to me, first and foremost, is that the traditional model of shared governance was never created with a UMUC in mind. It does not now, nor has it ever fit with UMUC's reality, which is dependent on agility, flexibility, and innovation. I think that it is fair to say, and you all know this, that some of our recent interactions with FAC have been challenging. I assume they have been challenging for them as well. And they have not been wholly productive. And I assume they also will feel that the interactions have not been wholly productive. Part of the challenge that we face is rooted, and I have the benefit, if I may have a parenthesis here. I joined UMUC in 2001. I have been here as of July 1st, 14 years. Before that, I was at the system office for about 12 years. So I have observed UMUC from very close and then from inside. And I think what we face is a challenge in the long-standing confusion about the role of faculty at UMUC and the scope of academic governance. I think it is vital to our health, to our future, to our success, that we address this now through a broad, thoughtful, productive, and ongoing dialogue that meets the current challenges and those that will be facing UMUC. This is part with implementation of our new business model of repositioning UMUC to compete and lead in the world of 21st century adult higher education. I have talked to you enough about the competition we face. I don't think I need to, I think it will be like preaching to the converted. You watch TV in the Washington area or Baltimore and know the challenges we face when it comes to competition. May I have the next slide, Bob? I want to share from a book that came out last year, Bill Baldwin and Gene Tobin. In case you don't know them, Bill Baldwin was the president of Princeton University and the CEO of Mellon Foundation, and Tobin was the president of Hamilton College. I share this because you cannot be more traditional than Princeton and Hamilton. In their book, after they go through some case studies, they recognize that at one point in their research, they were very inclined to drop references to shared governance as a term altogether, and actually to argue for avoiding all use of the phrase. They went on, we were troubled by the vagueness of the concept, the lack of even rough agreements as to what it meant, and inclinations to use the phrase in sloganeering efforts of various kinds. Presidents of Princeton and Hamilton College. Yesterday I was at the Middle States Commission. I was honored to be elected to the commission, and we were reviewing reports from different institutions. And it is amazing the assumptions that are made about shared governance, so much so that I made a point that in training future reviewers, we need to make clear that Middle States does not address the issue, nor does it define shared governance. I call it shared governance is in the eye of the beholder. Whatever I think is shared governance, that is shared governance. And that leads to a lot of confusion. However, like they did, I accept life as it is. And I know it is a term that is used. So our job is to define it for UMUC clearly once and for all moving forward. Let me share with you some overarching principles to guide the management of UMUC going forward in changing the business model. Part of that is also to keep transforming the UMUC into an organization that is managed in certain ways. And I think this is the macro view of where we should be going. We should be managed as best-in-class employer. All employees, every employee, full or part-time, faculty and staff, has to be treated with respect, period. This is not about shared governance. This is about being decent human beings. It's also enlightened self-interest. I think organizations that are managed this way become more productive organizations with deeper loyalty from the employees. Also, as best in class, every employee, again, full and part-time, faculty and staff, should have input into the criteria used for their evaluation. And as we move forward in revising, let's say, the paths for staff and developing a faculty, a more robust faculty evaluation, of course, the people affected should have a say in what are the criteria to be used to be evaluated. UMUC should be managed with transparency. The president and the senior leadership team should have an ongoing communication with the entire UMUC community. I have tried my best, and I pledged to you back in 2012 to be as transparent as I could be within the constraints of being in a very competitive space. I hasten to add that transparency doesn't mean that we take votes, and transparency doesn't mean that we agree. Transparency means we will listen, and we will tell you exactly where we are going and why. And again, all UMUC employees, full and part-time, faculty and staff, should have the opportunity to provide feedback on the overall directions of the university. We just did that through a very comprehensive process through which we developed and adopted the strategic plan for the next 3 years. Let me share some assumptions about shared governance at UMUC. These are assumptions I bring to the table that I want to share with you. First, we must recognize that the regions, the Board of Regents, the governing board of UMUC approved a faculty advisory, I underline, advisory council for UMUC rather than a traditional faculty senate. We are the only USM institution that has advisory clearly spelled out in its shared governance body. This was no accident. This was the regents recognizing that UMUC is a totally different type of institution. I will get a little bit into some of those uniqueness of UMUC. Second, we don't get state money. You know that. Well, we do get state money. What is 9%, whatever it is. We are tuition driven. That means that we have to accommodate, shared governance has to accommodate our needs for agility and flexibility so we can compete in fast-paced online market. Again, I'm going to refer to the TV ads that are listed in the Washington area we get. Last year, we started what I consider to be a wonderful branding campaign. We call it the Moments campaign. I think about 5 months later, Strayer came out with ads that in the first few seconds, I didn't know if it were our ads or Strayer. I saw, I think it was last night or the night before, an ad for, not for like an ad for the University of Southern New Hampshire, that it was very much along the same lines as Moments. Anything we do, we came out with cybersecurity before anybody else in Maryland. A year later, by now, I think everybody and his brother has cybersecurity. They are not as successful as we are, but they do have cybersecurity. Anything we do in this environment will be duplicated by the competition. So we have to always stay a step ahead. Another assumption is that we must maintain the integrity of our leadership structure at UMUC. Strategic decision-making, at the end of the day, is a responsibility of the president, whoever happens to be president. And the final academic accountability rests with the provost, whoever the provost happened to be at the time. Next, please. We also must allow in shared governance for proprietary and competitively sensitive information to remain confidential. No, I cannot divulge how much we spend in advertising. Believe me, every competitor would love to know that. I get that question many times, and I could, provide other examples like that. One of the things that we're doing in retention, which is wonderful, is we are testing, controlling and testing email messages to our students. We have tested messages coming from the deans, different points in time. And very data-driven, we are finding out when and what type of message is most effective to increase the likelihood of our students re-enrolling. Do we want to share that information with our competition? No. The exact data? No. But of course, I'm just sharing with you how we are doing this. I also may add that in Maryland statute, in law, our proprietary and competitive information is protected from freedom of information request. That was changed when Jerry here was president. Nick, you may recall the year. I think it was right the year before Jerry left, so most likely it was 2005, that the General Assembly adopted both that we are an open university, the Open University of Maryland, the nation, etc., and protections for our competitive information. Academic governance must be led by the university's core faculty, program chairs, and 12-month collegiates. If I learn anything from the report from CUSO, which I assume most of you, if not everybody, every one of you has read, is they point out the confusion as to who drives the curriculum at UMUC. I must admit that I felt that was a valid point because we have never been very clear as to who is the core at UMUC, the core faculty, and who are the stewards of the university curriculum. If there is one point that we need to be very clear is the protection of the academic integrity of the university. That was the second commitment I made to you when I became president. Transparency, communication, and academic quality. Actually, I just reversed the order of what I said back then. So for me, this is very important to really define who is the core faculty and who are the stewards of the curriculum at UMUC. Another assumption is that the Adjunct Faculty Association will continue to represent the stateside contingent faculty via meet and confer. They were established under a policy of the regions to provide adjuncts with a channel to express and have a conversation and recommend changes to their working conditions. And at least two, I think by now, about 3 or 4 times a year, we meet with the executive committee of the association, particularly Marie does. Let's talk a little bit about the current types of faculty at UMUC. And I see this as a continuum that began when I joined UMUC in 2001. We were at the tail end of a ranking of the faculty, and the regents had approved a set of rankings, collegiate assistant professor, associate, etc., and adjuncts, etc. So I see this simply as our evolution, the next step in our evolution. But the reality is that our faculty is not a simple faculty. This is not St. Mary's College of Maryland. At any given time, we have 3,000 faculty teaching. As a matter of fact, we have 4,000, I believe, last time I asked for the data, faculty, because you know that an adjunct faculty who teaches at least once every 3 terms will continue to be an adjunct faculty for UMUC. And they are all over the place, all over the world. So first, stateside, we have what we call core faculty, you, and those on the telephone, the ones we invited. That includes both program chairs and teaching collegiates. And it also includes librarians 2, 3, and 4. That is also part of Regents' policy on librarians. We have contingent faculty, NOLs, which basically are, you can call them super adjuncts. They are paid at the adjunct rate, but they teach a full load. When I became president, we felt that that was not long-term sustainable and that we needed to phase out the NOLs. We had a plan to phase them out, and we still do, by the end of August 2016. We had a plan to shift most of them to collegiate, to full-time, 12-month collegiates. Unfortunately, then we had a huge problems with our financial situation, and we stopped that transition. We will adhere to our commitment that they will continue to teach for us as NOLs through August 2016. But that category will go away after August 2016. And then, of course, we have adjuncts. And adjuncts, there is a simplicity out there that all adjuncts are alike. You know, it's like I got a question in a military conference about veterans. And it's like, no, every veteran is different. So adjuncts are not all alike. The majority of our adjuncts, we know because of surveys we do of the faculty, are practitioners or retired from practicing the field which they teach. A number are not practitioners, but the reality is they are trying to make a living out of adjuncting. And they teach for other institutions as well as for UMUC, and I think in many cases, some cases, for institutions that actually compete against us. And then overseas, we have two types of faculty. As of this, I think it's August, all the collegiate faculty, the full-time faculty overseas, will have become what we call traveling faculty. These are faculty who teach for us full-time. I think it's a 10-month contract with annual contracts, renewable up to 4 years. So they cannot teach for us overseas for more than 4 years. And they are expected to travel to whatever the need is. So, for example, and this is actual, last year I visited an installation, and this is just one of the installations where this was happening. And we were told clearly we need a faculty here to teach biology. We didn't. We had several English faculty, but not a biology faculty. The idea is to have a cadre of faculty who moves around to whatever the need is for what they teach, and wherever there is no need, they will not be reemployed. We have been very upfront as to what they are getting into. And actually, that's the old model of UMUC. That was the way it was done in overseas. And when I came here, we had residential faculty, traveling faculty. It took me a while to learn all these terms. So we are going back to just traveling faculty. My hope is that over time, we expose our students to a whole range of different faculty. One of the problems when I was speaking to the Corps, the contract officer for the Europe contract, he was very grateful of this approach, and he said, you know, it's not good to have service members taking courses always with the same faculty. You major in Dr. Smith. I also believe that long-term for UMUC to have an increasing number of folks here stateside, I don't mean UMUC, that have taught for us increases UMUC's brand. It is amazing the number of people I have found at conferences that approach me and tell me, I taught for UMUC overseas, and generally for fallacy is the best times of my life. There were one person called it her postdoc, and it was what got her on the way. So I hope we go back to that migration or recycling of overseas faculty. And then overseas also we have adjuncts. Generally, they are very transient. There are really different types of adjuncts there. First, we have a number of foreign nationals who teach language, Spanish, Italian, Korean, Japanese. And, but we also have a very transient adjunct cadre of faculty who may be military officers with a master's degree, contractors that have an advanced degree, etc. But they are here today, gone tomorrow, etc. So when you look at this incredible diversity, I think that's what enriches UMUC, the incredible diversity of faculty At some point, you have to ask yourself, and if I were to come to UMUC as a middle state evaluator, my question will be, so who controls the curriculum here? 4,000 faculty do adjust whatever they think they should do? That would be a problem. This is where we need to be very clear and defined, and the way we see it is here. I call it Largo, and people plug into Largo. The 12-month collegiates, the program chairs, and the librarians who really are the stewards of the university's academics. Next slide, please. I originally had deconstructing shared governance, and I was told that is too negative. And I said, well, somebody should take a course in postmodernism. So I agreed to call it disaggregating shared governance. And I see two different issues. The first one, I'm being very upfront with you, is a clear definition of the stewardship, who makes up the stewardship, who has the stewardship of the curriculum, how it is delivered, and how is that stewardship exercised. I don't have an answer for that question today, except that I believe you are the core faculty. Second question, in what other ways should you, core faculty, be involved in providing advice and feedback to deans, provosts, presidents? Let's disaggregate a little bit more the stewardship of the curriculum. And this is very much taken. Middle States went through a process of updating its standards. So for the record, we are going to, I think you know, we are going through a self-study. We're using the old standards. This is from the new standards. And basically, it's not a verbatim quote, but who is responsible for the design and assessment of student learning experiences, including designing a coherent student learning experience? This is where you can have 4,000 faculty doing their own thing. Defining program course learning outcomes. Selecting appropriate learning resources. Designing specific courses. Designing appropriate assessments of student learning. Vetting and evaluating the contingent faculty. Somebody has to be responsible for that. Our assumption has been, is that it is what I call the core faculty. It's basically the people we invited to this meeting. I hasten to add that the standard for middle states, I will just read you one sentence. Student learning experiences that are designed, delivered, and assessed by faculty, full or part-time, and or other appropriate professionals. The world is changing. Middle States recognizes that in some institutions, those who steward, who deliver the curriculum, who are the stewards of the curriculum, drive the curriculum, may not have the title of faculty. That is not the case here. But that's how much the world is changing today. I always find amazing when people say, we always have done it this way. No, we have not always done it this way. And the we now is higher education. It is not UMUC. There are some questions related to core faculty, stateside 12-month collegiates, the ones we call core. Is that your understanding? Because it may very well be that what we assume is not what you assume, and we better be in sync. Also, in advancing beyond outmoded faculty administrator dichotomies, and this is typical, and I remember when, I've been 40 years in higher ed, and you know the old jokes, you joined the dark side and all that. Well, the reality is our model to begin with is different. A program chair is both, as I see it, is, of course, there are elements of an administrator, but the program chairs drive a lot of the curriculum. So I think we need to outgrow the administrator faculty dichotomy when it comes to these type of issues. So how do we define the roles and responsibilities for collegiates and administrators in ways that foster coordination, cooperation, and productivity? Vice deans and program chairs. I also hasten to add that the Regent's policy on shared governance envisions academic leadership being part of a shared governance body. If you're familiar, we will never be College Park, don't get me wrong, but if you're familiar with the College Park Senate administrators, now let's forget about program chairs, but are part of the shared governance structure. How do we structure the stewardship of the curriculum? Do you see yourself as core, as stewards of the curriculum? Do you think you should be the stewards of the curriculum? How do we structure that? How can we have contingent faculty, adjuncts and overseas, traveling faculty, provide input and feedback in their courses? This distinction doesn't mean, from our perspective, that adjuncts don't have a role. The core is not driven by adjuncts. The QSF report, again, another element was, they had a sentence like, adjunct faculty, I think there was a little bit of elitism, but that's okay. Adjunct faculty can never be the voice, the real voice of the faculty. I didn't like the way they phrased it, but I know what they were getting at. You need a core of people who are full-time, who are in the institution, providing coherence to the curriculum. Many of our adjuncts work in their field. How do we bring that expertise of what is needed? We want to be workforce relevant. That's a huge pool we need to tap into. How do we do that? We have adjuncts who have taught for us for many years. They also have valuable perspectives. How do we bring that? I think we try to do it now through, when we design courses, we offer adjuncts to help and pay stipends, etc. But I think we need to be very clear as to how we do it. Next slide. Should we streamline titles? We have 30 types of titles, 30 categories. Should we reserve a collegiate term for core faculty, stateside 12-month faculty only? Because at this point you say collegiate, and it took me a while to actually, when I came in 2001, Bob Jerome was working with Nick on this, and they explained the distinctions, etc. But I do think sometimes we're confused. If indeed this is the core faculty, should we restrict the collegiate term to the core faculty? If so, what would be an appropriate title for the overseas full-time traveling faculty? Adjuncts have their own stream, adjunct assistant, adjunct associate, etc. Over the course of the next several weeks, these are the questions and considerations you will address. I asked Provocini and her team, the deans and Cara, to begin the process. She will address more detailed the process itself, but it begins with you. We'll follow a successful framework, the way we did the business model. If you remember, we had people involved. We asked a lot of people, focus groups. We had a website. We also used that model for the strategic plan, and we plan to use that for this process. It has been successful. A part of the challenges we face is, look, let's be real. there is no one group that can represent the diversity of people we have at UMUC. So it is imperative on me as president, on the provost, that we get feedback from as broad a group of employees as we can. And you will hear more from Maria about this. In my recent town hall, I quoted Norm Augustine, the legendary former CEO of Lockheed Martin and a member of the U.S. Board of Regents. As you may remember, he was your Kent lecturer speaker this year, and we asked him to apply the lessons learned by industry to the revolution now underway in higher ed. Above all, he said that universities must accept that fundamental change is coming and that simply trying to do harder what you have been doing all along is a formula for failure. I said this at town hall, and I'm going to be repeating this almost every time I speak to the community, because there is nobody better than Norm Augustine to remind us what we are facing. And by the way, he was talking at that point not just about UMUC. He was talking about higher education, about universities. He also warned us that because UMUC is the leader in the field, we face two big risks: deluding ourselves into a sense of believing that we do not have to change. We are the leader. We have always been the leader. We were the first. And the risk of becoming the target because we are the leader, everybody is coming after us. Somewhere in 2010, 2011, somewhere in that period, AMU, American Military University, became the largest provider of higher education to the American military. And when they advertise in the Washington area, they make a big deal out of that. Folks, we were sleeping. I was here. I'm not blaming anybody. I was part of the university. They were eating our lunch while we kept thinking, oh, we had a wonderful lunch yesterday. Well, but today, guess what? It's gone. He went on to say that UMUC is enormously well prepared to take on what is an enormous challenge. We are well prepared, but it's a huge challenge. And that we have many strong ingredients of what is needed. I believe that was high praise coming from someone considered to be one of the greatest corporate leaders in American history. I think his words underscore the task at hand. Moving forward, this is one of the most critical enterprise, one of the most critical issues we will be addressing, one of the most critical processes that we'll be engaged in. We look forward to your participation in the process. Believe me, I deeply value your perspectives, and I do thank you for your thoughtful support, for the feedback that will be coming back, and most importantly, I thank you for what I'm reminded very often from my students and alumni, dedication, your dedication, and support to our mission and to our students. Thank you. Where are you going next?
Okay, everybody ready for the next part? Now we're going to talk about how we're going to do this. First, I want to thank President Miyares for this important opportunity, because if you think about it, this is rare. Actually, what we're doing at UMUC right now in general is rare. It is rare in a career that you get to reimagine the academic learning model, that you get to reimagine governance. And so this is truly, for those of you who will have, some of us will be retiring at a certain point. Some of you will have careers ahead of you. This is a terrific opportunity. And I just want to take a moment to really talk about that. We have a chance to do something very special here. I want to tell you that yesterday I attended a session at the museum in the district, and it was hosted by the National Journal and the Gates and the Lumina Foundations. There were speakers that included leaders from community colleges and four-year schools, the Department of Education, associations, and think tanks, and they were all focused on underserved students. You can call them post-traditional, you can, whatever. It's the group of students that we serve, and increasingly that the entire country needs to be thinking about how to serve. The overall message was clear. The world needs more of what we do at UMUC, not less. What we do is we proudly offer students the opportunity to achieve a high-quality, career-relevant degree in ways that fit their lives. Other universities are under great pressure to learn to do what we already do very well, and we need to remember that. At UMUC, I mean, it's interesting, we talk about, and even Javier mentioned this in his comments, we often push hard on we're different, we're so different, we're unique. The fact is that our student demographics and how we're thinking about serving them are the new norm. 3/4 of students across the board work, and it's tending more towards the full-time than the part-time. So this idea of the traditional residentially based student who works in the summer and maybe has a little part-time job during the year is only a tiny fraction of the huge number of students that are working and going to school, and that's our sweet spot. We have to realize and really understand where we are at this moment in history. Our collective mission is part of a larger, shared national endeavor. And if you go to conferences and you read inside higher education, you will see that that's true. And even at this forum that I was at, people stood up and said, from the Department of Education, we need more capacity. We need more capacity for all these students. And I'm like, we have it. Sometimes people don't understand who we are and don't understand that the way we've built this university means that we can take on more of these students, and that's exactly what we should be doing. We know that many competitors of many types and sizes are out there, and they're targeting your success. So, in fact, Paula Blank, who is the president of the University of Southern New Hampshire, he and I are on panels together sometimes, and he has told me point blank, they look at our tuition down here, and they target this area because they're competing with us. They're a smaller upstart. They're competing with us, and they try to keep their tuition only a little bit above what we charge. So we truly are a very specific target. Don't let anybody fool you that we're not. Now, we know that we've been vulnerable. So we had an enrollment dip in spring of 2012 to 2014, and that showed us some of our vulnerabilities. And there were sort of internal and external vulnerabilities. But under the wise leadership of our president, we took a path that included, and I know these were hard for many of you sitting out there, decisive, difficult, and strategic steps to turn that situation around. I will say, though, that we had the support of this whole university to not touch academic affairs until the very end when we absolutely had to for the second round of cuts. Most of the pain really came from other parts of the university, but we all share that pain. Now, we've come through to the other side of that with a greater sense of what we're able to accomplish as a community. And thanks to everyone, and you know this news from Javier's town hall, enrollments are increasing again. The overall number of students that we serve has gone down, but on that lower base, enrollments are increasing, and course completions and re-enrollments are up in some very wonderful ways. So we are growing, and we are helping students to learn better, and that's thanks to all of you. The learning part is about the people in this room and on WebEx. So of the many things that we're improving so that we can never have those kinds of layoffs again for budgetary reasons, nobody wants to go through that pain. Of the many things that we're going to do, I think, in my mind, today's discussion is the most important. I really do. I am personally very pleased that we have the opportunity to rethink governance in the academic realm. When I became the acting provost and then the provost 2 years ago, you know, we tried to work with the current governance system and had some success at the time. And since then, it has been a bit of a challenge, as is sort of not news to anybody. I've always wondered why the 12-month collegiates weren't more at the core of the governance processes. because I've always thought that all of you should have been. That's where the heart of the university is. Now, our adjuncts are critically important for effective teaching, but let's face it, you design the programs, you lead the programs, you hire and develop the effective adjuncts, you provide intellectual coherence, and you improve the programs continually. That's the heart of governance. And that's why you're the core of the academic enterprise. So we've just celebrated another amazing commencement season, and every student who crossed the stage was a testament to your good work. But in a world of increasing competition from, and to an increasing extent, not-for-profits and state university systems, we have to choose collectively to be even more nimble in our programs, continuously improving them and updating them to help our students learn more effectively. Our programs can't be static, you know this. Our competitive advantage comes from preparing leaders in their fields, and so we always have to have the latest in those programs. So this is more than about enrollment growth at this university. This is about serving that growing population of college-seeking students over the next 10 to 20 years, and using the very best in learning science and delivery modalities to do that, as we have always done. This idea of continuous improvement in our programs requires that every one of you, our program chairs and our 12-month teaching collegiates, play a more intentional role in the leadership of your programs. This is not to say that you have decided not to be intentional, but our governance has not been as clear as it needs to be, and so we need you to be part of a very intentional and collaborative process. All of this means that we need a governance process to empower you to do exactly what I've just said, to more collaboratively contribute to the leadership of our academic model. In the undergraduate and graduate schools, let's be honest, we've had curriculum and program councils, but I don't think we've made it clear enough that these bodies were for the schools to discuss the programs as part of governance. I really hope that changes. Whatever structure you and the deans recommend, I want and welcome you to have bodies where you can discuss and debate and, yes, disagree and recommend academic policies and curricula. That's the type of engagement we want and, frankly, that we need if we're going to be successful in the coming years. I also really want and welcome a model through which we can hear more easily and directly from all of you on a variety of topics related to our mission and our work. We have a good model for that in the strategic plan recently. I think there was a great, the folks running it really tried to reach out and get lots of input from folks, so we need to keep that going. So with your vice deans and your deans, I'm asking you to explore the development of a structure for academic governance that will fully empower you, the core faculty, to establish and guide the evolution of our curricula and educational policies. And we want to engage you more deeply and keep you more fully apprised of the future directions of the university and the roles that you will play in it in the future. We also want to offer more opportunities for our practitioner adjuncts and 9-month collegiates, who are right now called the NOLs, to provide feedback about the courses they teach in a manner that you design, because you are their supervisors. You hire, you recruit, you train, you develop. You need to figure out and help us understand how you're going to ask for their input and advice about the courses that they teach. This renewed commitment to responsible and effective governance led by our core faculty is a critical component of our future success. Now, I also know that many of you would appreciate more opportunities for training and development. I hear all the time from folks, you know, man, this is a job, this is a managerial job. I manage a lot of adjuncts, and that's sometimes hard. And I don't know anything about adaptive learning, and I'm reading about it, so what's adaptive learning? So in the next few weeks, Kara Van Dam, who leads the faculty experience, and your deans, Matt Prinius and Eric Krause, will be asking for volunteers from among you to guide the development of I'm calling it a core faculty learning institute. You can call it whatever you want. Come up with a new UMUC acronym, we'll call it that. And what I want you to do is to tell us what skills and knowledge you want more of in order to engage more deeply in our future learning model and to do your jobs better and to feel like you are able to do your jobs better. You have very complex jobs. We ask you to do a lot. And so what is it that we can help you with? We can bring in speakers. We can develop retreat days. We can sponsor some of you to go to key conferences to learn and bring information back. We can develop in-house training. That really, the sky's the limit. And I hope we develop a really great plan for next year, but then we try to figure out how to keep it going so that it is not a one-shot. It can't be. We all have to be continuous learners. The important thing is that we support you to lead us into the next chapter of UMUC, and this requires that we support you to form a strong learning community. And I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but we really need to form that learning community, and you need to help us understand how you would like us to do that with you. But now, let me tell you specifically what the steps will be in this process of developing an improved academic governance model. So if you could go to the next slide. All right. First, we've developed several different ways to garner faculty feedback of all types. So let's start with you, the core faculty. This afternoon, you will be spending time with your deans and your vice deans, and you'll begin considering what this new model of governance could look like and the roles it would play, given the points that Javier and I have made this morning. So there's a framing, but within that framing, you should really be thinking about not what we've done in the past or what you might have seen at one other institution, but what should be the model that will work for you at UMUC. This will represent the first round of feedback from our core faculty. Of course, we have several types of faculty. Javier showed you the slide, and we want to hear from everyone on this topic. So over the course of the next several weeks, we will follow the framework that was established for the discussions on the business model last year, which involved a series of focus groups with members of our global community. These focus groups will be facilitated by Dr. Ford Rowan, who will help with the process of gathering input. Ford, would you mind standing or waving so people can get a chance to see you? Okay. He handled the focus groups last year, so he probably will be familiar to many of you. He's facilitated or consulted for 4 other universities and 4 institutes. He is an attorney and has a doctorate in public administration. I like to kid him that he has more degrees than like my entire leadership team put together. He is a very smart man. He's been an adjunct instructor at 2 other universities for a total of 26 years, and so he understands the governance conversation well. And he will be facilitating these focus groups. We want to make sure that we hear from a diverse and wide range of faculty in these focus groups. So to that end, we will be selecting faculty at random, representing all faculty groups, both stateside and overseas. All current members of FAC will be invited to focus groups, as will some former members of FAC. The benefit to this random selection process is that all faculty types will be represented. The disadvantage, though, is that not everyone who wants to take part in a focus group will be randomly selected to receive an invitation. So in order to address this, we will also have a number of additional spaces in the focus groups for those who wish to participate but were not asked. And these will be on a first-come, first-served basis. For those faculty who wish to submit feedback via written means, the former UMUC Future page is being updated as we meet here. It's being worked on, and it will now become the governance conversation, and it will go live next week. There is a feedback form right on that page that faculty can use to offer comments and ask questions. We will send all faculty an email message when that form is live. It should be at some point, perhaps mid-next week. Now, here's how we will develop the final draft for that improved governance model. If we could go to the next slide. A small group of core faculty, those of you in this room and on WebEx, will work with the deans and vice deans to help draft a final report with recommendations. This small group will have access to all input and suggestions that are gathered from all the program chairs and teaching collegiates today, and from all the focus groups that will occur over the next several weeks. We ask that the final report and recommendations be submitted to President Myers and me by the end of July. I know that's a tight timetable, but we have a lot of structure in place to keep that moving forward. The President and I will then create a draft policy paper with recommendations that he will then present to the Board of Regents, hopefully in September. Before it goes to the Board of Regents, we will share this draft with all of you, and actually all faculty, for final feedback before it is presented to the Board of Regents. So you will get multiple opportunities to provide feedback on these ideas and on the final draft. Upon approval by the Board of Regents, we will immediately implement the new model, and I'm hoping it can be as early as this fall. If they approve it in September, we can kick it off in October. I want to end my comments today by encouraging all of you to submit ideas. If not, I'm sure all of you will participate today, and you'll have a lot of opportunity to talk. And by the way, Javier and I will not be there. This will be your schools alone meeting this afternoon so that you can just talk with your deans. If you don't get all of your information and feedback out today, and you think about something over the weekend, then feel free to say, you know, I'd like to be in one of those focus groups if you're not randomly selected, or by posting comments and questions through the link on the website. And we will gather those and answer them through a Q&A format on the page. But we'll keep your information confidential.